All right, it's 1:30. Welcome everybody to the first session of Level Up. So I've muted everybody for the time being, and I will ask that everyone unmute later. So the little microphone at the lower left, kind of find that. And I'm going to be just encouraging everyone to participate a little bit later. But I just want to get through some housekeeping, and the first housekeeping is I'm going to be speaking, as well as Roberta Nelson, who is on staff here at the state office. And we have things written out because we want to make sure that we're saying all the things that we want to say and talk about today. So if you see me doing this, it's only because I want to make sure that I stay on track. Also, don't veer off and talk about a bunch of squirrels that weren't on the agenda. So I just am so overwhelmed. Almost all agent support staff have signed up to be part of this Level Up collaboration. And so I just really want to welcome you and thank you for participating and being here today. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Robin Rohde Keller. I'm the Director of Operations for Farmers Union Agency. I've been on staff here for 8.5 years, 8.5 awesome years. And my passion really in life is making others' lives easier, more productive, more vibrant. And I really look forward to growing and learning right alongside with you, because I have some things that maybe you can learn from me, but I know in this group of wonderful professionals, there is a lot for me to learn. When I speak with you and see you in action, I'm really, really impressed, and I look forward to really growing with you. I want to introduce Josh Vickerman, who's on the call. Josh Vickerman is our president and principal. He has been with the agency very close to 12 years, and now 4 years as our leader. So Josh, do you have a few things to say to us today?
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Josh. For those of you who I have not met, I see some familiar faces and some faces that are new. And I got to tell you, I am fired up for this Level Up thing that Robin and today Roberta's are going to be running. And our whole goal at Farmers Union Agency, right? Our mission is to be the example in our service to our clients, team, family, community. And when we say clients, our client here at this office is you guys. And we're on that mission to help you grow in ways that maybe we haven't afforded the opportunity in the past. And so one of the commitments that we've made this year, right, is to do something like this called Level Up, where it's an opportunity for all of you to connect with one another, to network with one another, but also to learn, right, new ways and better ways of doing things. And you know what? Everybody on this call is at a different place along that journey in terms of where they are and where they want to go. But it doesn't matter where you are today, right? The whole goal is wherever you are today, let's grow a little bit, get a little bit better, and I think really good things for happen. I do want to just say a quick thank you to all the work that I know you guys do. A lot of times maybe don't get the credit for it, right? We know how that works. But I want to say thank you because you guys are a tremendous part of the success that we've had as an agency, and I'm incredibly grateful for that. So I hope you enjoy your time here today. I know these guys are going to do a fantastic job. I'm going to stick around for a little bit, and then I've got to jump to another meeting, but I wanted to say hi. So thanks for the time, Robin.
Thanks, Josh. So each month we will have a different focus and topics that are important to you. I did send out a survey. So if you haven't filled out my survey questions, one of those questions is things that you're interested in that you would like to see in subsequent months that we tackle. We're going to get to know each other, and I urge you to participate as fully as you feel comfortable. So the power of this group really is in what you contribute to it. So the more that you can be present and participate and add to the dialogue, the greater and more vibrant our interactions are going to be. So my pledge to you is that I'll work hard to make sure that this is some of the best time that you spend each month. This is a new venture. You've already seen my techno wizardry not. So trying to figure out teams, making sure that you guys can have access, you can see, and really going to be encouraging you to participate on that platform as well with questions, success stories, that type of thing. So I just ask for your continued patience because I've already probably stretched your patience a little thin with stretching that technological muscle with some of you. You should all have access to that Teams group. So this is where I will post resources. You can ask questions, like I said, share ideas. But part of leveling up is being surrounded by like-minded, positive people like yourself. So I'm hoping that that can be a good platform for us to interact with each other. Before I introduce Roberta Nelson, and today's topic, I just want to tell you guys a brief story and ask you to think about a challenge question that we're going to loop back to towards the end of the session. So in 2000, I retired from insurance to exit the paid workforce and be a stay-at-home parent. So at this point, I'd been an insurance agent for 3 years in a small town agency, some quite like some agencies that you guys are in, and then went to work for the Big Eye of Minnesota for 7 years. Fast forward to 2014, my 2 boys are older. My circumstances had changed, and I got back into the insurance industry and went to work for an agency as a commercial marketer, doing similar work to what Danielle Brown does on our state office staff, as well as policy downloads. Now, mind you, I had never worked with an agency management system because in 2000, when I exited the insurance industry, the agency management systems were really the exception, not the norm like they are today. So I kind of didn't know what I was doing. I worked really closely with that agency's accountant slash controller, and just one day was in her office asking the millionth question. That day it was on an organizational system that I was trying to put into place that would list all of our download contacts, what policies did and did not download, just trying to get some organization around a lot of chaos of information. And I remember she looked at me and she said, "Robin, this is your job. You are very capable. I agree you have a great idea. I now empower you to make it happen." A kind of, I'm not at a loss for words very often, but that was a moment where I just kind of stood there and I kind of felt like I was put in my place a little bit, but also I felt a little bit like, okay, she's letting me kind of put my talents into action. And I did just that. You know, it was a small thing, but it really helped other people in the agency. And it, many times through the years, I've thought of that moment, like, okay, I'm not feeling sure of myself. I don't quite know if I should do this. It feels like the right thing. And I now give myself, her name was Teresa. I give myself Teresa permission, like, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and make it happen. So I hope that this group urges you, if you have ideas or you have processes or you have things that you really feel like, you know what, I really want to try this, I want to tackle this, I want to grow in a certain area, like I want to help you make it happen for yourself and your position. So any way that I can do that along the way, I'm available, as I know all of the state office staff are really waiting to help you. 1 second. I'm admitting someone here into there we go. Welcome, Clark. I'm sorry if you were waiting in the waiting room too long. All right. So, challenge question. I want you to think of that one task, function, area of your job you would like to make better or master or learn more about. And I'll be asking you so I can take note towards the end of our session here. I'll put that question into the chat once Roberta starts, just to kind of remind you. Also, if you have questions while Roberta is speaking today, the chat will be open and I'll make sure that we address those at the end. So without further ado, we have Roberta Nelson with us today, and she's going to be talking about the topic of the elephant in the room, AKA pick a topic, right? All the hard conversations that you guys have been having, such as the customer who does not understand why their premium has skyrocketed, or they're being non-renewed, or they have far less options to choose from than they have in the past, or they're faced with tolerating higher deductibles, etc., to bring their premium down. All of those interactions that I know that you guys are involved with on a day-to-day basis here, really working in the trenches. So Roberta is going to be addressing a lot of those conversations. Roberta is a Wisconsin, Minnesota native who started with Farmers Union Agency just really close to 2 years ago. She comes to us with over 25 years of insurance experience, much of those 25 years in an environment that we currently are in, because she was active in Colorado, which had this type of environment. Roberta serves as our personal lines liaison between the agents and our carriers, and we encourage all of you to reach out to her if you have specific coverage questions, problems with the claim, or need clarification or on recent or upcoming carrier changes. Roberta, please unmute yourself. Welcome, Roberta, and thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks, Robin. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for taking the time to be present with us today. Some of you I already know, but I hope to get to know all of you and look forward to working more closely with you in the future. As Robin mentioned, I have been in the insurance industry for over 25 years in all lines. From 1999 to 2022, I worked primarily with personal lines in Colorado, as she said. I ran a farmers insurance agency while simultaneously owning and operating an independent agency. The reason I tell you this is Colorado has been in a very hard market since 2008. Many of you have heard the term hard market, but may not fully understand the definition. A hard market is characterized by increased premium, stricter underwriting, less capacity, restricted terms of coverage, and less competition among insurance carriers for new business. I know this accurately describes what we are all experiencing on a daily basis. The rate increases we are seeing now in Minnesota mirrors the ongoing rate increases that we have dealt with in Colorado for the last 16 years. It was my primary job to review clients' accounts annually and as needed. As you all know, this can be a challenging and stressful task, usually yielding very little reward. As an agent support member, you're all normally the first line of contact for the client's questions and needs. Today, we want to take on these challenging tasks directly and try to provide you with some tools to help explain the current insurance climate in Minnesota. We want to help provide you solutions that will make these calls a little easier to get through and to get you some much needed wins. Excuse me. For so long, our mindset was to close a new business account was a win, to find a cheaper rate for a client was a win. As we move farther into a hard market, it is important to shift your mindset and include retention as a big win. For example, just last week, I had a client call in complaining that his auto renewal increased 62% with Safeco. Now, he did have an accident in the last 3 years, but we all know that most carriers in the state have filed the maximum rate increase of 25% or very close to it. With an explanation as to why his insurance increased so dramatically, in the end, he stayed and purchased an umbrella as a cherry on top. For me, that was my win, not only for the day, but probably for the week. Remember, when you are talking to any insured, to always put yourself in their shoes. Remember, we are in their shoes. We are customers too, and are all feeling the same pinch with the rising costs. A typical conversation with a client in regards to a premium increase may go something like this. Dan, I totally understand how you feel. I just got my renewal too, and even being in the industry was completely taken back by the jump. The unprecedented inflation, coupled by the enormous amount of catastrophic weather events in Minnesota over the last few years, has impacted insurance carriers like I've never seen. The cost of labor, parts, lumber, steel have all risen so dramatically that these carriers have no choice but to raise rates just to stay afloat. In fact, I've been in the industry for over 2 decades, and I have never seen insurance carriers choose to completely stop writing new business or pull out of Minnesota altogether. And we have seen this with over a dozen carriers in 2023. At this point, I would usually throw in an example. There are 4 that I tend to use the most. Like a month ago, I had a client hit 2 deer with this pickup. The payout was over $60,000, and there weren't even any injuries, well, except for the poor deer. Or I'll mention that my mom and dad just had a hail claim from the August 11th cat storm. You could hardly even see any hail damage on their house at all, and they were paid out nearly $80,000. Or maybe I'd say, I bought my car 4 years ago, gently used. I could sell my car today for more than I paid for it then. And that's just crazy. The cost of a bumper 10 years ago averaged about $700. I've seen them as high as $6,000. With all the new technology, excuse me, it's the same for windshield as well. I would strongly suggest taking the time to think about examples you can use when talking to your customers. Feel free to take mine. It might even be fun to share some of these. Maybe we can set something up in teams to share retention wins. Take our wins when we can get them. Remember, when you get these calls, your best approach to talking through a rate increase is to take a deep breath, sit up straight, and meet the conversation head on. Empathize with their situation and provide a reason for the rate increase. Offer examples of real life scenarios that will help them relate to the current market. And third, and the most important, is offer solutions. We can all sit here for hours commiserating about the angry and upset customers we deal with. We can all offer dozens of examples of how disheartening some of these conversations with our clients are, but we think it is important to be solution driven. As part of my call strategy, I always try to be proactive and offer solutions. If I get a call from a client needing simple service work done, like replacing a car, filing a claim for a windshield, whatever, I'll always give them a heads up about their next renewal. Let them know that the rates in Minnesota have gone up across the board and with every carrier. Tell them when to expect the renewal, and tell them when they get it, just don't panic. Tell them as soon as they get their renewal to give you a call. Remind them that there are things we can do to help them. And there really are things we can do to help them. We're here to educate our clients and to make sure they are getting the coverage they need. We need to reprogram our thoughts on home insurance, just as we had to do with health insurance over the last 20 years. Most of us remember having small deductibles on our health insurance and remember a time where it was fairly affordable. Things have changed. We now all have high deductible plans with high premium. The market is no different with personal lines. When you talk to them at renewal, educate them on this. Offer up the health insurance metaphor. Let them know that we are happy to provide deductible options and are here to help them make that decision. Remind them that a higher deductible might be scary, but wouldn't they rather have that money in their pocket as opposed to the insurance company's pocket? After all, they may never have a claim for another 10 to 15 years. Moving from $1,000 deductible to a $2,500 deductible could save them $800 a year. Over the course of 10 years, that's $8,000. Obviously, way more than enough to cover the difference in deductible. Advise them that the industry will be moving to mandatory high deductibles eventually, and in fact, we're already seeing it. They might as well grab the savings now. We all have those customers who just call to vent and tell you they're shopping. If they say they're going to shop, remind them of the coverage they have and what they may be giving up. Most of the big carriers require 1 to 2% deductible for the roof. That would be a $5,000 to $10,000 deductible on a $500,000 home. If they have replacement costs on the roof now, remind them that a new policy might only offer ACV. Take the time to explain the difference. Remind them that underwriting guidelines have really tightened up and many carriers will not renew a policy if there's any claim in the first policy period. Just imagine shopping for insurance because you're non-renewed and now you have a claim. We all know how hard those are to place. I always advise insureds of the 60-day discovery period where after inspection, a company can legally cancel their new policy midterm. I always advise clients to never cancel their current home until they're positive the inspection process is complete. This honestly seems to put a little bit of fear in shoppers. Keep in mind, loyalty is rewarded in a hard market. Every one of us works for an agent that does things a little bit differently. Many agents would prefer you to handle the calls. Some of them would prefer to handle the renewal calls themselves. As we move into 2024, deductible options are going to be your best option and your best retention tool. For me, I work my renewals and quickly run deductible options as the renewals generate. Depending on the client, I either reach out to them or have the numbers ready when they call. I have no doubt that having these options documented in Eclipse would be a useful tool for everyone in the agency. When doing annual reviews, please revisit potential discounts. Educate them on telematics. A client who may have resisted telematics 2 years ago might have a very different response when faced with a 25% rate increase. Now that 20 to 40% savings may be a lot more appealing. Don't forget defensive driver discounts. A lot of people don't even know those exist. Make sure you're asking them what they do for a living and how far they're commuting. Affinity discounts and education level discounts will make a difference. Verify the roof year and the type. Ask them if they have home security. Any little bit helps. Plus, it drives home the fact that you're really working for them. If you take a really vested interest in their renewal, they're going to know that and they're going to feel it. In 2024, I would like to encourage all of you to share any retention tools that you might use and share any unique situations that you may have stumbled across so that we can all benefit from each other's experiences. If we all work together, I'm certain we can build an unstoppable and successful winning team. Keep in mind that I'm here to help too. Don't hesitate to reach out. If I don't know the answer, I can certainly find it, and I'm more than happy to do so. Robin?
Thank you, Roberta. So for those of you that do not know, Roberta services, retains, and grows, cross-sells a book of business that we had out in the state of Minnesota, that we had some disruption with the agent, and we chose to bring that book of business in-house here at the state office. So she is doing all the things that you guys are doing on a daily basis with that book of business, alongside being Jim Hickey, our director of sales for farm and personal lines, his right-hand lady, I'm going to say. And so not only is she knowledgeable, just generally, she has that working knowledge with our carriers, the carriers that you guys use day in and day out. Going back to what she said, that question, I really would like to hear from a couple people, and I'm gonna unmute I can't unmute you. You can unmute yourself with the little microphone, but I really would like to hear from a couple of you, either like a success story of a conversation that you felt like, okay, I really hit it, or maybe questions or situations where you guys have been at a loss.
Surely
And
someone has
I'm
had a
not
win.
beyond voluntelling, AKA, you know, suggestive selling. People like, let's see, Crystal Guzman, super knowledgeable. Maddie Stokes. I talked to Aaron Huber before. I've heard conversations you guys have had where you're successful. Okay, but I'm gonna call it Crystal. Can you at least introduce yourself? Tell us who you work with, what agent you work with, and what your responsibilities are. I'm gonna highlight a couple people here so we get to know each other.
I am Crystal Guzman. I work at Johannes Agency in Wilmer for Paul Johannes. I am currently, I guess, considered the office manager. I work mainly with commercial and farm policies.
So did you guys have some FMH farm policies that you've been rewriting, and tell us how that's going for you?
So far, so good. I've retained all of them so far except for one. Premiums are a lot higher than what Farmers Mutual Hail was offering. I've noticed that the replacement cost of the outbuildings, Farmers Mutual Hail seem to have them low compared to what they are coming in at now. So that's impacting the premium quite a bit.
Thanks, Crystal. How about Maddie Stokes? I don't see you on my screen here, but I know you're on the call. Do you want to introduce yourself, Maddie?
Sure. I'm Maddie. I work with Aaron in Moorhead, Aaron Skank in Moorhead. This market's been rough. It's been a hard last couple months. Those conversations with people when they call, and not only do they get the giant rate increase, but their deductible requirements also go up, and you get very good at your customer service voice. So just try to explain to them it's not us personally doing it. We're trying everything we can to help them find coverage that's reasonably priced, and explain what they have, and just tell them to, everybody's going through it. It's nothing personal.
Do you have a kind of a phrase or two that you fall back on that you have found really brings down the maybe agitation?
I do tend to kind of push it onto the company, because it is, and I say, it's not us. We're your friend. We like you here. We're friends. The insurance company is not our friends. So, we want to help you. We are doing everything we can. I'm your friend and I really like you, but the insurance company, just, they don't like any of us. So it kind of lightens the mood a little with them.
I find myself referring back to Paul's been in this industry for so long and he has never seen anything like that. So I do say that quite a bit to a lot of the insureds when they call in.
And I think that's a really important point, Roberta. Don't you think that it's not just our agencies, companies, it's really all insurance companies?
It's across the board. I've seen in a hard market, I've seen State Farm completely stop writing in Texas. I've seen farmers stop writing in California. This happens. It happens and it cycles, but it's not forever. But when I look at these clients nowadays and they're complaining about rate and their renewals, I understand it. We're consumers too, but to me, I'm like, you're lucky to have insurance at all. Like, that's how it feels at this. Doesn't it feel that way sometimes? you know, oh, your rate went up 20%. Well, you're lucky they didn't just cancel you because what would we do with you? Especially if you've got those clients with a ticket or two. I'm always super excited when I check and see those. So where are they going to go?
The other thing we've had to do a lot lately, I don't know if you guys run into this, but we have a lot of hard conversations with people whether it's worth filing a claim or not. If they have
Mhm.
a $500 deductible and the total payout is $700 to $800, we have a lot of that conversation right now where if it's not equal to your deductible in the payout, you really need to weigh the risk of whether you want to actually file a claim on it or not.
Definitely, even with roof claims or water damage claims, I've always advised my clients every single time to have a professional look at it first, get some sort of estimate, and then we'll make a decision from that point. Water can be a little bit different because you have to mitigate right away. But if it's a slow leak or something, we all know that a lot of times those are denied anyway. Definitely roof claims, never file a claim to find out if you should file a claim. And it's hard for insureds to understand that, but once you explain the market and even having zero payout claims could keep you from being placed elsewhere.
Other issues that people are experiencing that you have felt uncomfortable or just at a loss with answering customer questions?
I think the hardest people to deal with are the elderly who are on such fixed incomes. Like it's heartbreaking. But there's only so much we can do. Our hands are tied. And at that point, you know, if you're talking to an elderly person who is living in an apartment, you know, and they're at 250, 500 right now, like I would never normally recommend reducing coverage for anyone. Our goal is to build them up. But if they're somebody who has no assets, what are they going to take? They're not going to garnish your wages, you know? There's we just have to learn to think outside the box, you know, probably for the next several years. The prices aren't going to come down in the next several years. More companies might open up as they can close down and then reopen at a different price point, but we're not going to see rates go down for a long time. But don't you think?
With piggyback to what you're saying, Roberta, I would also look to see if they have the work no loss for PIP,
Oh, for sure, every time.
because I mean, that could lower the premium for them too.
For sure. Sadly, though, these companies, even when you remove those, I mean, I've seen rate decreases as low as $7 every 6 months. It doesn't seem a lot, but at least again, they know you're working for them.
Well, and I think there's power, like Maddie was saying, you know, connecting with people, really listening, showing empathy, knowing that if the customer knows they have an ally in you, that you will try anything, you will investigate, and you can report back sometimes that you didn't come up with anything, but I really, you know, tried to uncover every stone to see if there was savings or different possibility or solution for you. You know, I know when I run across that, which seems to be seldom nowadays, any kind of customer service where someone goes, what I feel a little bit above and beyond, boy, I am so appreciative. And I'm going to go back there, whether it's a restaurant or store or service organization. I am going to go back there. And if I'm called upon to offer a recommendation to a friend, I'm going to recommend those people. So, you know, I really encourage you guys to keep doing that, because maybe you won't be able to help them today. Maybe you won't be able to stop them from switching to an agency down the street or pursuing a solution elsewhere. But when they run into a situation where they're not going to get that service from where they went to, they're going to come back to you. They're going to remember. I know, and you can maybe speak to this, Shylin. Agent Joel Harmoning was just telling, I think, Jim Hickey here about a client that came back for the third time, that's left and come back 3 separate opportunities because of the service that he got at Joel's office. And I think that's really telling. Those are the things that I feel like those are our success stories for 2024, right? It's retaining the policies. It's helping people. Sometimes that's not going to look and feel the same way it has in the past. And maybe it won't contribute to the bottom line monetarily. But I think overall, with reputation and how we do business, and we stick clear, really, really close to our core values as an organization, I really feel like that's going to help us weather this storm. That's sometimes not a super easy job, especially for people. If you're at all, I'm a fixer. I like to fix problems. And sometimes it's the hardest thing to say to people. I'm not able to fix your problem, but I'm here for you anytime that, I will try to help in any way that I can. Any other scenarios? Because I would love to have somebody pose a question as pretending to be a consumer or an insured to Roberta. I would love to put Roberta on the spot and see how she'd answer it. Anybody have like a common, let's pose the common question to Roberta.
Ugh, that sounds terrible.
I have one, Robin. Okay, so my name's Erin. I work in Moorhead at the Robin Swanson Insurance Agency. And I would have to say the number one thing that always gets me is people say, but why do I have insurance then? That's always the number one comment, because we
Are you
always
referring
try
to
and
claims, like if it falls below deductible? What are you referring to exactly?
just in general, a lot of people, they're like, I mean, obviously most of the time claims, but also their coverages in general. We've had a guy, he's like, well, why do I have to buy a special form when he goes, I'm only going to submit a claim if my house starts on fire. So it's like, okay, I mean, it's just all, and obviously not everybody questions that, but most of the time in any sort of claim scenario, when we're, people, it's for example, I had a lady have a glass claim, $500 deductible, $700 windshield. She wanted to file a claim for $200. And I was like, this just really isn't worth it, to file a claim for $200. Just pay that out of pocket, you don't have it on your.
Everybody's situation is differently. Like glass claims for the most part with most carriers, depending, they don't count against them anyway. Their comp, it might later down the road if she shops. But I can tell you, I mean, I remember being 24 years old and I would have definitely filed a claim for $200, Everybody's situation is so different.
Right. But I guess I'm just saying, how do you, I mean, I know how I respond, obviously, because I deal with it all the time, but I guess for other customer service reps and, I guess how would you, since Robin wanted me to put you on the spot, how would you respond?
No, that's totally good. I think that the situation is different with everything. If we're talking about a comp claim, it's a no-brainer. If we're talking about I would file a claim probably myself if it was just I was getting $200 back, why not? It's comp. If they backed into their neighbor's car and and they dented their car a little bit and it was that same $500, $700 scenario where it's clearly going to be a chargeable accident, then I would definitely educate them on that. I feel like when I get the why do I even have insurance questions are usually regarding a tree falls in the yard and we're not going to pay to remove it because it didn't hit anything, then why do I have insurance? Well, if the tree had fallen on your house, you'd be happy, that you had it. It's, some of it is part of just the price of being a homeowner, and that's hard for people to hear, but they also understand it. We're not there to pick up their messes for everything, their driveway cracks because the earth shifts. Well, we're not covering that either. It's just the way that it goes. Insurance is designed for catastrophic events, and that's more and more how we have to look at it with the high deductibles and always something that's sudden and accidental. We can't it can't be a home maintenance policy. Nobody would cover that. And I mean, if you say it the right way, in the kindest possible way, they usually get it. They understand. Why is my insurance so, I wasn't part of that hailstorm. Why are my rates going up? And then you respond with, well, insurance is spreading the risk, but imagine if you had a slip and fall on your property and your insurance went, they paid out 500,000 to that person who busted their head open on your driveway or whatever. Would you be okay with your insurance rates going up 500%? No, it's spreading the risk, and that's just how insurance works. It's the way it's worked since the dawn of time.
One of
Right?
the most, yeah, one of the most powerful things that I've heard recently was when faced with being asked a lot of really hard, sometimes rhetorical questions. Because I think consumers ask rhetorical questions. Really, there are no answers. We do not have an answer. So they're asking you questions and somewhat just like getting it off their chest. And you're the one that is in the room listening, right? One of the things that I've heard that is helping to kind of dissipate that anxiety or that aggression or anger or whatever it is, emotion, fill in the blank, is saying like, these are great questions. These are questions that you should be asking. This is your insurance. It's an important part of your financial plan. And, thank you for asking the hard questions. Unfortunately, unfortunately, I don't have a lot of answers. I like what Roberta said about the fact that it's for really catastrophic loss, for things that you do not have a small savings account to cover, right? When you have a large loss, when you're faced with that, your insurance is going to show up. You want to make sure that you have coverage, and it's your insurance is an investment in those situations when you are faced, when you're not going to be able to make yourself whole again. That's why we buy insurance.
They usually use that as an opportunity to open the door to fully review their policies too. If you have questions and concerns, like let's set an appointment, make sure you've got all the coverage you need. Somebody who has a $500 deductible for comp and no glass endorsement, like that's something you can address it. Obviously it's just another way to get them in there, making sure they have all the coverage they need, the discounts they deserve, and just another way to build that relationship with that client. So all of those questions can be used as an opportunity to build relationships, which also helps with retention.
Yeah. Kind of like there's never bad publicity. There's never a time when you don't want to talk with your insured. Sometimes it's uncomfortable. Sometimes we're in a situation that we don't want to be in. We don't want to be part of that discussion. But every time you have an interaction with an insured and you can get to the end of the conversation and have a positive resolution in some way, shape, or form, that is solidifying the relationship that you have, and the probability that you're going to continue to renew their coverage and retain them as a long-term customer increases. So those are the value add that you can bring to the table as the person that's answering these questions, that's answering the phone calls, that's sitting, on the opposite side of the desk when they stop to make a payment, or they just got their renewal and they're bringing in their deck sheets and, they're loaded for bear. You are the one that can have that presence, that calm presence, thank them, listen, a lot of listening, mirroring what they're saying. All of those tactics sometimes sound a little bit textbook, but over the years, I've really seen them work. Where you're kind of, you're reiterating their questions. So what I hear you're saying is you're asking, X, Y, and Z. Yes. Well, okay. Let me think about that. Let me research that and then call them back, close the loop, be the customer service that we all can't find nowadays. Thank you, Erin. Anyone else? Anything else top of mind as we think about these topics? Erica Mertens, you look so calm.
I have a
It-
question. If
Yes.
it's okay. So I was faced with one the other day. Sorry. Hi, I'm Maggie. I work out of the Flemke agency in Owatonna. I was faced with one the other day where it was one of the cancellations with Secura, and she had renter's insurance. Turns out she hasn't been living there for a minute. And then she actually had two addresses, and one was in Owatonna and one was in the cities. So I asked her which one was her permanent address. She said in the cities. So I quoted it for the cities, and naturally it was a lot higher than what it would be down here for renters. And I mean, poor girl was like beside herself crying, and she was like, well, what's to stop me from just saying that I live in Owatonna? I was like, I don't know. What does your ID say? I don't know. I still don't know what to do.
We all have found backdoors to other things. We can't use an address, obviously she doesn't live at, right? If it's going to be a return mail situation, it just depends on the situation. Like if it was somebody who just graduated college and, you know, was just dipping their foot in living in the cities, but their parents still live in Owatonna, I think that would make sense to do that for a while, just to see, but obviously that's not probably the most ethical, and but it depends on their situation. If they're renting in the cities and their car is in the cities, they need to be rated in the cities. You know, it's just part of life. But, you know, that's a time to shop too. Unfortunately, I mean, you're probably looking, I do have a list, you guys, in case you want them, of monoline carriers, package required carriers, monoline for both auto and home. That, you know, it's just a quick cheat sheet so that when you have these weird scenarios like what you're talking about, like who writes, some people aren't even writing in the 5 counties at all. So I feel like that's kind of a challenge right now. Where do I even start? I don't even know where to start to place these people. But we have developed kind of at least something to go off of. So you can quickly kind of surmise where you need to be. I had one today that was an agent called in, and it was his mother being non-renewed for Secura. And she had an open claim on her renters, lived in Ramsey or Hennepin County, one of the two, and drove a Kia and a Hyundai. I'm like, oh my God, it doesn't get any worse than that. But we have those reference points. And if you get weird things like that, feel free to call, because I talk to so many of you that I jot notes, and I usually a lot of the times can have that answer right at my fingertips because I've already dealt with it with somebody else.
So the cheat sheets that Roberta's talking about, I will put them in our Teams group. There is a file tab at the top of the Teams group, so I will post those there for resources. 2, frequently when people learn that I'm in insurance, they stop talking about insurance around me because I will call them out. I've had friends who will say things like Maggie, you were referencing, like, well, you know, really, this is where I live, but my car is garaged for one day in, you know, small town USA where the rates are a lot. And I'm like, I just want to be clear. You are currently talking about insurance fraud. Now, I can say that to my friends, right? And we have somewhat of a little bit of a chuckle. But I think it's, you know, we do a disservice to our customers when we don't say things like, at the time of the loss, especially if you have a large loss. So let's say that renter, there was a fire and all of their possessions were burned, and they were going to get the max limit on their renter's policy for their personal property. can about bet that there is going to be an adjuster and or an investigator who is going to be asking a lot of questions, right? They're going to be not only interviewing you, they're going to be interviewing other tenants. They're going to exhaust all resources because at the end of the day, and we like to think that our insurance companies are always our friends, but Maddie alluded to that maybe sometimes they're not our besties. You know what? They're going to do their damnedest to not pay that full property value or personal property limit, right?
Well,
And so we
even-
want to tell, one second, Roberta.
Okay.
We're gonna want to tell our customers and alert them. Like, it really behooves you to really be transparent, and we want to put the address that is appropriate, that when you do have a loss, you're going to get your full benefit of the insurance. Sorry, Roberta.
No, that's fine. I mean, and you know what, when we talk about kids moving to the cities or something and still having the address of their parents and they're just not quite there yet, they're working on it. I'd say that's a gray area, but I will tell you that that client that hit the 2 deer at one time, he happened to hit him. He was hunting in South Dakota. And that's where he hit, but underwriting was all over me. Why was this truck in South Dakota? He lives in Minnesota. Well, he's hunting. And then they dropped it. But if I didn't have an answer and he didn't have an answer, like, oh, I just moved there 6 months ago, it would have been an issue for sure.
Does that bring any resolution, Maggie?
Yeah. She had told me that she was like half living at her parents in town and half in the cities with her boyfriend. And I was like, well, where's your stuff? What's the address on your ID? How much time do you spend in the cities? And it was like literally a split down the middle. And I'm like,
Well, at that point, you can really only go by what they're saying anyway. If she's not on a lease, she is staying with her boyfriend. Her driver's license is still up in Owatonna. She's young. Chances are the relationship's not going to work out anyway. She'll be right back at her parents. So, for me, I'd probably leave her there with her parents for a while.
Yeah, congratulations, Maggie. Those are all the questions that you should have been asking. So sounds like you handled it. You could be running. Everyone, Maggie, next month's presenter.
okay.
One thing you could always tell them too is that, if they get real snarky with you, because I've dealt with that before, is my job's not worth your problems. So we're just not going to do it here in this agency. Like, people want state minimum liability. We just won't give it to them. And there's other agencies around town. Go ahead and go find one. It's just not worth it. So
Yeah. I've never once in over 2 decades ever written a state minimum policy, not one time. A source of pride, if you will.
Well, thank you, everybody. I really appreciate people jumping in and participating. So thank you. I'm gonna be reaching out on Teams for that challenge question. I'm not gonna put anyone else on the spot, but remember what is one task or function or area of your job you would like to get better at, you would like to master, you would like to learn more about. Sarcasm, Maddie. I love it. I love it. And your answers are really going to be helpful to me because I've reached out to our carriers. I'm trying to get some people that can be almost like podcasty, that they can come, some industry experts, and you guys can really like ask the hard questions of not only me and the state office staff here, but of our carriers and of some people that can be useful to you. So I'm really going to be looking at what your interest is and what you are going to find helpful. I could come up with 12 topics, super easy. Some of those are very, very boring because they're best practices and you've already heard the spiel probably numerous times from me. Now, I reserve the right to also bring those topics in. But please let me know the answer to your challenge question. I think that's all that I had today. If anyone has any further questions, like jump in. Roberta, any parting words of wisdom?
No, but I would like to just remind people, like I'll have agency staff, agents call and say, how are docs covered on all of these policies? Just things like that I'm happy to research and then provide you the answers on. Or like today I had, apparently they're called skid houses, like ice houses, but they're not on wheels, they're just on skis, which I had to look up. I had no idea. But I researched those to find out like how they're covered with different carriers, whether they go rec or whether they're endorsed off personal property, which seems to be normally how it is off the homeowners. If recovery is covered under the homeowners, things like that. And seasonally, those things will come up, but we're happy to research that for you here. And, as long as you don't need it done in 5 minutes.
Roberta, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
We have an individual in our office that is a carpenter that built his own fish house, valued at $40,000. It is on a manufactured frame or whatever it's called. But we're having a hard time placing it. Where would you expect that to be placed at?
I would think American Modern, if anywhere.
They don't.
They do
And
not.
they won't.
Yeah.
The homemade ones are extremely difficult to place.
So Roberta, that skid house that we gave you the problem with, Foremost won't insure them because of certain reasons, and American Modern has tightened up on that as well. I just learned.
The skid houses, I thought that we landed on the fact that to start with the homeowners, because the homeowners is going to be your best bet, because we look at them mostly like hunting, what are they, hunting stands kind of, because they're not permanent. They come on and off and they have no wheels. And a lot of those companies require, if it's going to be as a recreational vehicle, they have wheels and these don't. So it should become a scheduled personal property. I have no idea where somebody would insure a homemade, and where do they get the value from?
We
The
for the homemade-
42,000.
We did a homemade ice house with Progressive.
And they did it?
Yep, our insured had to go to the DMV and get it titled in Minnesota as a homemade fish house of some sort, titled in his name. He gave us
Kind
the
of like
value
they
of what
do with homemade trailers. See, this is all good stuff, and this is what I was hoping to get as you guys share your things. Having a book of business of 500 policies. I personally don't come into contact with all these strange scenarios, but like you just said, Aaron, with the Progressive, like they assign, I would assume some sort of serial number or a VIN number, just like when people make homemade trailers.
He has a VIN number, but it got rejected because it wasn't 17 digits long, because he does have it registered.
They gave him a VIN number recently with only 16 digits.
It wasn't even 16. How many was it, Sadie?
So they put a serial number on it instead of a VIN number.
Yeah, there was 10, but he has all the receipts for how much it costed to build. I mean, he's a licensed contractor himself, so I couldn't see that issue, but since it was the insured himself who built it, no matter if he is a contractor, they have issues with it.
Okay, so we have a 2023 got labeled as a homemade fish house recreational trailer. The serial is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 digits long. I added zeros at the end, and it's insured with Progressive. So I don't know. That's all we got.
So Progressive seems to be the go-to for homemade.
Yes.
And see, we didn't even know that. Jim and I just talked about that this morning, and neither one of us knew that because we hadn't stumbled across that. And that's what I was hoping with these conversations or opening up teams, always stumbled across a weird one. I think it would be great if everybody else knew that this is like, I tried 6 different companies, and just so you know, a homemade trailer Progressive will take. Who knew? You know, I would have had to spend, you know, whatever, 2 hours researching that as well, you know? And that's great just to know that. And now it goes in notes so that if somebody else calls a month from now, then we have it here on hand to answer those questions.
Yeah, it's strange.
Yep.
I called them too for it and even asked them and they gave me a straight up no. So maybe
And-
it was just the digits of the VIN where I needed to add extra numbers to it, but
And that, I'm sorry, that was with Progressive as well?
yeah, they stated they do homemade cargo trailers, stuff like that, but nothing like a fish house. So, I mean, maybe it was just flagging me because I didn't put enough VIN like numbers.
What
in
was the
there.
what was the value on that one?
40.
That one
It's
was
a
40?
41, yeah.
Holy.
Okay,
I've
I
never heard
know,
that.
this is captivating. I'm gonna have you guys take this offline, but I did want to, now, nice to meet you, Sadie. Right? So Sadie, you work in Crystal's, in the same office in Wilmer that Crystal works for Agent Paul Johannes, right? Nice to meet you. I've never met you, so thank you so much for being with us. So these are things that you can share in our teams. If you have something crazy, post it there. Maybe each other can help answer, or call Roberta. She's always a good reference. Do not hesitate. I know that part of her why and what brings her happiness is helping people out and helping solve these kinds of questions. So please utilize her. Thank you so much. We're at 2:31. I'm going to end the session. It was recorded. I will post that on Teams in case you want to watch it, or there's part of it that you want to listen to. Also, Roberta has her notes from what she spoke about, especially those talking points of examples, those types of things. I will put that in the files for reference as well. So again, thank you, everyone. I really, really appreciate seeing all of your beautiful faces. We'll see you next month, third Wednesday at 1:30, and I will alert you to the topic ahead of time, and we'll see you then. Happy New Year, everybody. Oh, and level up, make it happen.